Well, we have with us today Dr. Molefi Kete Asante. I am so grateful you joined us as we celebrate Kwanzaa here for the first time here in Ethiopia. Dr. Molefi Asante is one of the leading scholars, African scholars. We know him as the father of Afrocentricity. And really, Dr. Asante has contributed so much to our understanding of ourselves and has helped us through his research, his writing, to develop a deep appreciation for Africa, for our culture, for our heritage. And for that, Dr. Asante, we are eternally grateful. Thank you so much for all the work that you've done and for joining us today to celebrate Kwanzaa here in Addis at the Africa Unbound Museum. Welcome, Dr.
Thank
Asante.
you. Thank you very much. I'm so delighted to be here, Dr. Casahoon, and I'm so happy to be with Africa Unbound Museum on this first historic Kwanzaa in Addis. It makes me very happy. I'm very pleased. In fact, I'm sort of I'm so excited. It's like this is history, and it's a marvelous thing to be with the wonderful people of Ethiopia on this occasion.
Yes, and who better to start the celebration with than the greatest Pan Africanist of our time?
Yes.
Asante, if you could just give us a brief introduction of what is Kwanzaa about? How did it come about? And what should we know about it?
Thank you very much for that question because I think that it is a very proper question in this moment in history. One of the outstanding, perhaps most significant intellectuals we have in the 20th century and now into the 21st century is Maulana Karenga, who is also a very great writer, a great activist and intellectual. And when he was in his early 20s, he observed that nowhere in the world was there a celebration of the history and culture of African people that was celebrated by all African people anywhere else in the world. That there was no such thing. That we all had our sort of individual, sometimes ethnic and religious celebrations, but we didn't have a holistic celebration that looked at the incredible achievements and the intellectual, spiritual, and cultural gifts of the African people. And this was, I guess he was probably 25 or 26 when he just said, you know what, I'm going to have a group of people at my house from all over the African world, and we're going to come together. And he was influenced in this by a number of people, many of them, including the great South African Mzizi Kunene, later became a good friend of his. He was a great poet of Africa and many other people who were greatly engaged and involved in this process. And some of you, are aware of how important this kind of celebration is because Ethiopia for the African world was the great symbol of African freedom and independence. And there are many poems and many cultural productions in the United States and in Brazil and other places in Jamaica outside of Ethiopia, where people look to Ethiopia as the guide, as the mother of Africa, as the country that gives us the most identification with this long history of achievement. So it was very, very powerful for Maulana Karenga to use he used the African language, Kiswahili, as a language of Kwanzaa. And he took the word Kwanzaa, which means basically the first fruits. And throughout the continent of Africa and in the African world, there are many places where people have celebrations of first fruits, where they have harvest celebrations. They have New Yam celebration, things like that. So this celebration of Kwanzaa was where we came together not so much to talk about what divided us, but what connected us as a culture, as a people, as a world people, not as a small group here, a small group there, but we are a world people. No other nation, in my imagination, could bring this to mind for the African world other than Ethiopia. Because Ethiopia has not only the very beginning of human history, but it is the very beginning, the very beginning of African history and African culture and the ability of the world to look at all of African people and see Ethiopia sometimes identified as Africa itself. In other words, people didn't know anything else about Africa except Ethiopia. So Ethiopia became this symbolic icon of all African people, wherever you were. If you were traveling in Russia, they would say, "Oh, you're Ethiopian." If you traveled in Turkey, "Oh, you're Ethiopian." No, you say, "Oh no, I'm from Zambia." They say, "Oh no, but you're Ethiopian."
Yeah.
So it's a very, very proud culture. So this notion of Kwanzaa was based on this. And so what Karenga did, he examined all of the cultures he could at that time at a young age of Africa to find what were African virtues, values. And he found unity was a value. He found self-determination was a value. He found that collective responsibility, cooperative economics. He found Nia, what he called purpose. He found culture and faith, Imani. But before that, he also found that you had to have this sense that these were the seven principles, the fundamental seven principles. Let me go through them again. The fundamental principles of Kwanzaa, because they were very, very deeply embedded into the concept. He said, first of all, we get together and we say umoja. And he said umoja meant unity. And of course, in many languages, particularly throughout East Africa and Southern Africa, you find umoja or moja, meaning basically one, that we are one people. That was the important situation that created the sense of unity, that we're not, we think sometimes we're separate because our languages are separate. We think sometimes are different, not separate, but different. We think sometimes that we are different people because we are born in a different region of the world or a different region of Africa. But we are essentially the same people. 99.99%, we're all the same people. And the accident of our birth, what Karenga discovered was the accident of our birth was something that we didn't control. It was not like we said, I want to be born here, I want to be born there. We had no control of it. So in effect, we are all united. We're all human beings. We're all the same. And if we are born in a territory that's called Ethiopia, then we are all a part of that territory. We're
Right.
common, and I've traveled all over Ethiopia from the top to the bottom. I've and I've seen this commonality of the culture of the people. You see, so we have to massage it oftentimes because there are many kinds of things that create frictions, but. That's true whether you are a Haitian and a Jamaican living in New Jersey. And I've had to go to schools in New Jersey and talk to the students who are from Haiti and who are from Jamaica because they're having issues with each other. Or I've had to talk with African Americans who are having issues with Nigerians in the school in Washington, D.C. So it's all this is the same situation, but we're the same people. And so emoji is fundamental. And so it's a value. And then we can go through the others. Kuchichakalia, is an incredible power. Kuchakalia, he says that was self-determination. That not only did we have these things, but as African people, we had to be responsible and understand that we also fundamentally people who recognize, and not just in each other, but everywhere, that people can be self-determining. And self-determination is itself one of the great values that we can have. That people who consider themselves to be world people, as we are, wherever we are as world people, we have to have this sense of self-determination. And I have always said that self-determination was at the very basis of the beginning of what African people can and must do. Because if you don't do self-determination, if you don't have that value, there's no way that you can move forward. Then he said, Uchim,
That's what Afrocentricity is about,
that,
right?
in fact, Afrocentricity can be related to Kwanzaa in the sense that Dr. Karenga used to say that Kawaida was the philosophy. Kawaida means for the principles, the traditions. That those traditions that out of which Kwanzaa grew, that those traditions, which were collectively African traditions, that those traditions gave us this whole sense of Afrocentricity as well. So Umoja, Kuchachakalia, Ujima, Ujamaa, Nia, Kuumba, Imani. Those were the seven principles.
Yes.
And we should try to remember them. And they're in Kiswahili, but you can put them in your own language. People can put them in their own language, but I like to say them in Kiswahili. Umoja, Kuchitakalia, Ujima, translated as collective work and responsibility, and Ujamaa, meaning cooperative economics, and Nia, meaning purpose, and Kuumba meaning creativity, and Imani, meaning faith. And in fact, Imani, meaning faith, is the last principle. And what Maulana Karenga said was that what we have to do is to remember that these celebrations, this celebration, is not a replacement for Christmas. It's not a African Christmas. It is a celebration that starts on the day after Christmas and goes for
Right.
7 days. And
Yes.
and it is a powerful expression of unity of the family first,
Yes.
unity of the family, unity of the community, unity of the nation. That's all into Kwanzaa. So this is a spirit and the time in Ethiopia for unity, for umoja. This is a moment for the young people, the children,
Yes.
the young adults to be engaged in the process of umoja and to
Exactly.
celebrate umoja with a festive spirit that, hey, sister, hey, brother, we are one. We are one. We are one people.
We are here to celebrate Kwanzaa in general. And today, of course, it's about unity. It's the first day, the 26th of December, and that's what we are celebrating. But and as a close friend of Dr. Molena Karenga, you gave us a really good. Thank you so much for that introduction of what Kwanzaa is about. You touched on a really important point earlier. You talked about the role of Ethiopia,
Yes.
and I just wanted to just for us to just dig a little deeper there. Yes, we should celebrate our victories. Yes, we should celebrate these Pan-African holidays. But let's also talk about our responsibilities, particularly we as Ethiopians here, but then more generally, descendants of Africa, sons of, and daughters of Africa in general. We do have a responsibility to go back to understand the ways of life, the wisdom and the knowledge that our ancestors had. There were ways of life that they practiced that allowed them to stay unified. They had peace building mechanisms. They had conflict resolution mechanisms. There are many things that they practiced that we have forgotten or we're not practicing anymore. So how would you say, what is our responsibility now? What do we need to practice on a day-to-day basis that will help us um, understand our oneness, our interconnectedness?
Well, I
So what
think you
are we doing?
thank you very much for that question, Dr. Kassim. And I think that from what I know about what the work that, for example, Africa Unbound Museum is doing, it is essential because essentially what you're talking about is how do you develop consciousness? You see, people will not and can never be united unless there is a degree of sameness in terms of understanding. We got to understand the same page. If we're not on the same page in the same book or in the same text, then it is difficult because we are not talking about the same things, even though we think we're talking about the same things. And that's why a common consciousness that's based on our historical realities will give us the language to talk about. There's nothing in Ethiopia that even tells us anything other than the fact of the matter is that in all epochs of Ethiopian history, all the people have been actively engaged and involved. For example, we're celebrating the 125th anniversary of the Battle of Adwa. And if you start thinking about that, one of the things that when you read about it, and as I've read about it, what you find is that people from all over Ethiopia came to fight in that battle. This was a battle that brought people from the rural areas, from the villages. They came, they took the call and went to battle. This is a moment of great pride in the African world. We can never forget that. But there was a common consciousness that we had to protect something that was
Yes,
valuable from the very beginning of history. There is
yes,
nothing more important than developing collective consciousness. And if we can develop that among our young people, regardless to the languages that they speak, if they can develop this sense of commonality based on common consciousness and understanding of the role of Africa in the world, not just in Ethiopia, but in the world, it's connected. It's connected to my ancestors on my mother's side are traced to Sudan. So from Sudan to Kenya to Uganda to Nigeria, Chad, all these places, this is all connected. Africa is one. And if we don't understand that, we have no understanding at all of the
true.
beautiful umoja that Dr. Karinga presented. When he presented that in 1966, it was amazing because now throughout the world, wherever I've gone to Norway, I've seen Kwanzaa practice in Norway. I've seen Kwanzaa in Johannesburg. I was at Kwanzaa in Johannesburg. I was at Kwanzaa in Stockholm. I had heard about it. I wasn't there for it, but I was in Tokyo, and the black community in Tokyo were having said they had Kwanzaa. So everywhere you have this spirit, and these people who were in these places, many of them had come from different parts of the African world, whether it was in Brazil. I've been to have Kwanzaa in Brazil and Salvador. So it is a powerful thing that brings
It
us to
really
the
is.
moment,
Yes.
7 days for us to talk about our collective consciousness and unity.
Wow. Absolutely. I agree with you. It feels very powerful because people all over the world, I mean, if we just kind of try to wrap our minds around it,
Yes.
all over the world are celebrating the same festival, let's call it.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Uh, and as you said, for 7 days, contemplating, thinking about, having discussions about 7 principles
Yes.
that are important to us.
Yes.
this is a way to raise our consciousness, isn't it? I mean,
It is.
we're talking about unity and what it means to us, and self-determination and purpose and cooperative economics, all of these the various concepts. Um, these kinds of discussions coming, first of all, the coming together to have the discussion in itself, and then just kind of exchanging ideas and insights and different kinds of thinking about these specific topics. That is the way to raise our consciousness, isn't it?
Yes, it is. You're perfectly right. And we will do it. We can do it. It is necessary for us to do it. It is a demand of a history that we do it, and that Ethiopia takes this leadership and give us this unity that is necessary. So from the sense of Ethiopian unity to African unity to world unity, because of course African people have always been open to the world, and
Yes.
this is our nature, our virtue. One of the great virtues of the African people is our openness to all people, and
Yes.
that's the beginning of the what I call the dethroning of the idea of race and the enthroning of the idea of humanity, because we are one.
Absolutely. Well, that's beautiful. Any final advice, word of wisdom you want to share with us as we continue, as we start on, we have 7 days ahead of us.
Yes.
Come together for 7 days to raise our consciousness, to contemplate what do we need to do to come together to appreciate who we are as individuals, who we are as a people, as a global community, um, and what is our role. So, we're trying to figure all these things out. Probably not going to have, we're not going to have, the final answer in these 7 days, but we will make some good progress, I think. But any word of advice for us?
Well, the only word of advice that I can give is uh, that you involve the young people, because the young
Yes.
people are the ones who will carry our traditions from
Right.
generation to generation. And that the first celebration of Umoja, in which you light the first black candle, is a very, very powerful moment where we talk and discuss the meaning of unity. What is unity? How do we practice it? How do we make it happen? And also, what are the advantages to unity? Because unity brings us strength. That is
Yes.
that, and you don't want anything to come in to destroy our unity, because the destruction of unity creates factions and divisions, and you cannot move forward. We've seen this everywhere in every society, and no society is immune to it. It will happen in every city. It happens in the U.S. It happens in Zimbabwe. It happens. This is, we know that these things can happen. So what we have to do is to fight against it, and we fight against it by having conversations about what the meaning of unity is. And then on that last day, when you celebrate, when you light the black candle in the middle on Imani Day, then you know you have gone through the teachings, because you have to teach, the meaning of each of these concepts. It's a beautiful celebration, and it's historic. I am so honored and happy to say I was a part of the Kwanzaa experience in Addis Ababa in 2020. Thank you so much. You have done me a great favor, and you've done a great service to our people. Thank you.
Your humility just humbles me every single time I talk to you. It's amazing. Thank you, sir. Thank you. We appreciate you. We love you. Thank you for taking the time to talk to us and give us this word of wisdom. I am eternally grateful for everything you do for Africa Unbound and for the world, all the work you've done. Thank
I'm a
you.
second Annie. Thank you very much. Bye bye.